let's get started. And I am excited because we have a special guest today. Miss Aleah Braxton, who is a guidance counselor at Overbrook High School. Now, here's some fun facts about Miss Aleah. Miss Aleah is from this area. She grew up in this area, in the general area, and she actually went to Willingboro High School. Okay, then she went to college at the University of Delaware. And then she got her master's, and now she is teaching at Overbrook High School. So what I love about her story, and there's so many more layers to her, but what I love about her is that she grew up in an area and then came back and is providing service for that same area. So without further ado, I will allow Miss Aleah to talk about herself more, because I'm sure you could do it so much more justice. And so take it away, Miss Aleah. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you for having me. And you did a wonderful introduction. I am a school counselor at Overbrook High School. I have students in grades 9 through 12. So we talk about the, yes, borough pride, somebody who's from Willingboro. But I talk about going to college and preparing for college or preparing for any postgraduate plans. So the fact that there are so many of you in here today on a Saturday is fantastic. You guys are already off to a great start in preparing for your college life. The things that you are doing right now are preparing you for college. You may not realize it, but everything you do is building another layer, building that foundation that you need to be successful. So kudos to all of you. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to talk about SAT and ACTs. What are they, why they're important, why we need them. So give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. So the ABCs of the SATs and ACTs, what are these tests and do I need to take them? So the first thing is, what are the ACTs and SATs? Some of you may be very familiar with this already. Some of you may have already even taken one of these tests. Maybe you've heard of them, you know a little bit of information, or maybe you're not sure. You know you need them, but you don't know why. So what are they? They are standardized assessments that colleges and universities use to measure your knowledge in different content areas. They just want to see what you know. What have you learned during your time in high school? Your scores may be considered by colleges and universities as part of the admissions process. So I like to think of your scores as an ingredient to a recipe. As you're doing your application process, that's your recipe when you're all done, when you're ready to submit your application. There's all these ingredients, components that go into that, right? You're actually completing the physical application. Maybe you have to write an essay. Maybe you have to provide a resume that lists your clubs, activities, if you've had a job, if you play sports. You may need letters of recommendation. You need a transcript that lists all your grades. And then we have your ACT or SAT scores. So all these little pieces that make up your application. What is the difference between the two? So just kind of backing up a little bit, most of you have taken some type of standardized test already. In the spring, if you are New Jersey students, you take NJSLA, you take something. If you haven't taken one of those tests, or maybe you're not in New Jersey, think of the test that you take at the end of a chapter or a unit. Again, they're measuring what you have learned. So the ACTs are going to measure what you've learned in 4 different categories. They're measuring English, math, reading, and science. And then there's an optional essay. So it's testing you in those 4 areas. The SATs are going to test you in 3 different areas: reading, writing and language, math, and then there's an optional essay. I put a little star by the essay only because the SATs are starting to phase out the essay portion. So some of you, if you're registered for the SATs this spring and you're registered for the essay, you can still take it. But anyone younger, if you're planning to take it next year or beyond, you will not be taking the essay if you're taking the SATs. But these are the categories that they're testing you in. So here are some examples. This is an example of what you would see in the English portion of the ACTs or the writing portion of the SATs. So as you can see here, and I'm not testing you guys today. I won't make you answer the question, but you may see a couple of sentences or like a small paragraph, and they're going to underline different portions. And what they want to know is the sentence correct as is, or do you need to change it in some kind of way? So you read it, you make sure that it's grammatically correct, the punctuation is correct, whatever portion is underlined, does this sentence make sense? If it does, you say no change, you move on to the next question. If it does not, something is wrong with this sentence, you look at your choices and you decide the best way to fix it. Okay. This is another example. Obviously, your books will not be highlighted, but this is just to give you an example to really show it. So again, they're going to underline a portion. This is a longer passage, but they're going to underline some portion of it. And is it fine, or do you need to fix it? Then there's the reading portion, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with this, where you read those passages that sometimes take up a page or a page and a half, and then you have to answer the questions that follow. What they're trying to do is determine whether you are understanding what you're reading, right? Can you pick out certain segments? Do you know what the main idea is? Are you able to really understand the point of it? So take your time when you're reading the stories. You have a physical book in front of you. At least right now, there's still pen and paper, or I should say pencil and paper. So if you need to underline something in your book to help you, mark up your book. It's yours. Nobody else is getting that test booklet. If you're reading and you notice something, put a little star, circle, underline, whatever you need to do to help you. There's all kind of tips and tricks to help you with these tests, and we'll touch on that a little bit later on. But if you're somebody who likes to highlight or mark things up, take your pencil and by all means write in this booklet, okay? For math, so you will see problems that look like this. You will see word problems. You will see all different kind of math. So again, you're just practicing those skills as you're going through school right now. Things that you don't understand, ask questions, get help, but you're going to see different types of questions. They won't all be this particular question, but just as an example. And then remember how for the ACTs, they test in science as well. So you may see something like a chart or a graph, and it gives you a little bit of information about it. And then you'll have questions that are asking you to interpret it. There'll be other types of questions as well. This is just a sample of the type of questions that you would get in science. So going back to the two type of tests, SATs are more common in this area, just more people take it. There's no right or wrong test to take. There's no, this one's better, this one's worse. It's kind of up to you. If you are someone who you feel like you do well in science, or you feel like testing in multiple areas is better for you, then maybe the SAT or the ACT would be better, right? Because you have that science component. But again, there is no right or wrong answer to which test you're going to take. How are the tests scored? They're scored very differently. For the ACTs, each section, so remember we have those 4 categories, you get a score between 1 and 36 in each section. Then you will have an overall score. It's called your composite score. That's an average of all your sections. So they will average your reading, your English, your science, your math. They average those together. That's your full composite score. This last bullet point down here is something that I want you guys to truly take in. There is no penalty for an incorrect answer. Do not leave blanks, right? On the multiple choice section, if you're not sure, guess. You have a chance of getting it correct, okay? You don't get points off for an incorrect answer. You just get points for correct ones. So think of it this way, nothing is subtracted. You just get points added when you get something right. So if you leave it blank, you have no shot of getting a point added. You might as well take a guess and give yourself an opportunity. You have a 25% chance of getting the correct answer. You might as well try, okay? For the SAT, so the scoring is different. The reading and writing section, your scores are between 200 and 800. The math is the same, between 200 and 800. And the same deal, no penalty for an incorrect answer. So make sure that you fill in a bubble for it, okay? For the SATs, you'll have an overall score. It's going to combine your reading and writing and your math score, and that'll be your overall. So just to show you a little sample of what your score report would look like. So this is for the ACTs. You can see on the left-hand side, there's that composite score. That's your average of all these other categories. There's a couple of additional ones on here. So you see your math, there's science, and then there's a STEM score. What all that is an average of your math and science scores. Okay, so if you're thinking of going into a math or science related field, you want to have that as your major. Maybe you want to go into engineering. Okay, some schools may want to see what your STEM score looks like, just to know how you are as a math and science student. Then you have your English score, your reading score. If you take that optional writing portion, so there's your writing score, that is between a 2 and a 12. It's not on that 1 to 36 range. It's a whole separate thing, your essay. And then at the end, you see an ELA score. If you take the essay portion, they will just combine and do an average of those last 3 pieces to come up with your ELA score. Okay, so that's what your score report would look like for the ACTs. For the SATs, so that big number at the top, 1190, that would be an overall score. Okay, that would be your 2 sections combined. If you come down here where it says section scores, 670, so that would be a sample of reading and writing score, and then math score 520. So those 2 things combined give you your score at the top. Okay. If you decide to take the essay, once again, for the SATs, it would only be if you're taking it this spring, they put your essay scores separately. Okay. How much do they cost? So there is a fee for both tests, and the fees are all there. 2 things that I really want you to take note of in this section: late registration. Please, please, please pay attention to deadlines. Deadlines matter. There is no reason any of you should have to pay an additional $30 or $35 to pay for a test. They are expensive enough as it is. I don't know about you, but if I don't have to pay an extra dollar, I don't want to, let alone 30 or 35. So pay attention to deadlines. They are important. That is also, I know it's another topic and probably for another day, but when you're doing your applications for college, deadlines matter. It's not, you know, with your teachers, oh, I forgot it, and oh, can I turn it in? I can bring it into you later. Deadlines matter. So please get your things in on time. At the bottom, please check with your school counselor to see if you are eligible for a fee waiver. Many of you may be eligible for a fee waiver, and you may not have to pay for the ACT or the SAT. If you have free or reduced lunch, you would qualify for a fee waiver. There are a number of other things that could potentially qualify you, but please talk to your counselor. So again, if you, these tests, you know, they cost money. So if you can qualify and not have to pay for them, you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of that. If you qualified for an ACT or SAT fee waiver, you likely will also qualify for application fee waivers. And they cost a lot of money, applications. You think I'm just filling out a paper and submitting it, but it costs money to, you know, for you to submit an application. So once again, if you qualify for fee waivers, you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of that. When should I take these tests? So I always recommend that you take it in the spring of your junior year or in the fall of your senior year. You could take it earlier than that, but you want to have a good foundation in what you're learning in high school. If you're taking it in the fall of your junior year, there's a lot of content that you just haven't learned yet. It's not because you're not able to do it, you just haven't learned it yet. You haven't gotten to that chapter, to that section, to that content. So you want to give yourself as much knowledge base and a foundation as possible. So you take it in the spring of your junior year. I do recommend that you take it twice. The first time you go, you might be a little nervous, you're not sure. Maybe you woke up late, so you rush to get there, you're just not at your best. So the second time you take it, you kind of been there, done that, you know what type of questions that you're going to see. You can pace yourself better because you understand the timing of it. So twice. And again, like I said, there's no preference. Maybe you took one of the tests and you did not do as well as you thought you would, or you just felt like it wasn't the test for you, try the other one. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But I do recommend that you take it at least twice, and this would be the timing of it. Some things to consider. Check the scores different colleges have listed. When you're thinking about where you want to go to college, check their websites. They will tell you the type of classes they want you to have in high school before you apply. And they'll also give you a range of SAT scores that they're looking for. So this way you can kind of compare your score and see where you fall. With that said, typically what they're posting is an average. So if you have an SAT score and it's not exactly what they have on their website, do not get discouraged. Don't cross them off your list. Don't feel like, oh, I'll never get in. I can't go there. My SAT score is not what they have on their website. Most of the time it's an average. So that means what? Some people are a little bit higher, some people are a little bit lower. Remember in the beginning, we talked about ingredients, right? All these things that they look at. Your SAT or ACT score is just one thing. You may be someone who struggles with test taking, right? Not everybody is a great test taker. You may know everything, but that day of the test, you may just freeze. It's you don't show your best on these tests, which is why they look at all the other ingredients. They're looking at your grades, your activities. Do you work? Do you have leadership? Do you volunteer? They're looking at all these other things so that it's not just your SAT score. You want to do your best, right? Put your best foot forward, but don't get discouraged if your score doesn't match exactly what it says on their website. There are some very program specific requirements, however. When you may look at a college's website and they're saying they're looking for a range of here to here on an SAT score. But if you want to go into nursing, they want you to have something different. So as an example, I'm going to say college XYZ, right? You go to their website, you're looking, oh, they want an SAT score of 1100. But for nursing, they may want a 1250, right? So you also have to pay attention to those things. There are some programs that are very specifically looking for a certain SAT score. And usually it's something that's, it's not a large program, right? They have limited spacing. They may only accept a handful of students in that major. So this is one of the ways they can kind of, decide who they're accepting to that major. Test optional. If there are any seniors here, you probably have heard that all year long, test optional. A lot of schools are offering test optional, meaning you don't necessarily have to submit your SAT scores. For seniors this year, because of places being closed, there were a lot of test cancellations just because, schools weren't able to administer the test safely. And so a lot of schools went test optional. What that means is they will consider those other ingredients more heavily. They're looking at those other things if you don't have SAT scores. Now for everyone else, non-seniors, some schools just in general have gone test optional. If you take your test and you really feel like these are not reflective of you as a student, you took them twice, maybe you took it a third time, you're just not comfortable or confident with your scores. It's okay. A lot of schools are test optional, but again, when they're test optional, that means they are considering those other ingredients more heavily. So if you know yourself now, and if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior on here, and you know that you struggle with tests, then you want to make sure that some of those other ingredients shine a little brighter, right? So that you're offering other things for those schools to look at. There is something called a super score. If you take the SATs multiple times, they will take your best score in each section and make up a score. So say the first time you took the SATs, you're going to take them this spring. You take them in the spring and you do really, really well in the math section. English, but the math, you did phenomenally. Then you take it again next fall. And this time you did worse on math, but better in English. They will take your two best scores, even though they're from two different test administrations, put them together and make a score. So they create your highest score. Hopefully that makes sense. So you don't just have to take, my score that I did in the spring and that's it. They can kind of mesh together a good score for you. So not every school does it, but a lot of them do. So again, that's an advantage to taking it more than once, because you potentially could or would do better a second time, and now they can find your best 2 scores. How do I prepare for these tests? So I've listed 3 websites on here. And if we have time, I can even show you guys around a little bit. But the ACT.
You have time.
Okay, perfect. So the ACTs have their own website. College Board is for the SATs. Khan Academy, I cannot say enough good things about. Some of you may have used it in your classes. They have great test preparation. They have so many like examples that you can do. They have videos that you can watch. They have sample tests. If you, and I will show you guys Khan Academy. If you link your Khan Academy account to your College Board account, so if you link and there's a way to do it, when you link those 2 things together, once you take either the SATs or the PSATs, it will connect your scores, and then the practice that you do is specific to you. If you don't do those things, you do generic testing and you can do all the practice that you want. But if you connect them, it will find areas where you struggled and tailor the practice to you. So you're focused on the areas that you need the most help on. And then the last thing on here is PSAT. So I had mentioned earlier, maybe your schools have already given them. If you have an opportunity to take the PSATs, I highly recommend that you do, for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's practice, right? It's the practice SATs. It gives you a chance to take the test before it truly counts. So you're going through the whole process as if you're taking the SATs, you're getting comfortable with it, you're understanding the format, the layout, the type of questions, the timing. It also makes you eligible for, if you're an 11th grader, for National Merit Scholarships. So depending on how you score, just by taking it, you're eligible for a scholarship. It also will, just because you take it, there's a section on there that says, do you want colleges to have your information and send you stuff? So you will start receiving things from colleges. Some of you may have no idea where you want to start. Like, yeah, I want to go to college, but how do I pick? Where do I start? How do I even know where to search, right? You'll start getting information. It's a good starting place to just, oh, here's college ABC. Oh, let me look into them. Never heard of them. Let me see what they offer. So a lot of advantages to the PSATs. If your school is not giving it this spring, find out if they're giving it in the fall. You definitely want to take it. Okay. All right. Any questions?
We don't have any